My name is Matt Gauze of Gauze Garage. I founded this channel back in 2019, and I've worked very hard to bring it up to the point to where it is right now. And today is the first Gauze Garage exclusive of 2025. And it's going to be centered around the Trans Am Sedan Racing Series. In 1966, John Bishop created the Trans-American Sedan Racing Series. Starting out after 1966, the first inaugural year, 1967 was a pivotal year for the manufacturers. Chevrolet had pulled out of racing completely. And it was really odd because when they pulled out of racing, they had this new, incredible car series coming out called the Chevrolet Camaro. The product manager for Chevrolet, Vince Piggins, dug deep with all his resources and put together a Trans Am racing car for 67, the inaugural year of the Camaro. It just so happens that Jerry Titus won in the Ford product in 67. In 1968, Roger Penske with Mark Donohue exploded on the scene and won in 1968 and 1969 with the new Chevy Camaro. In 1970, you saw a different development, as you see with the car in front of you. The 1970 Boss 302 was the championship for that year, driven by Mr. Parnelli Jones. Other drivers included George Fulmer on the Ford racing team with Parnelli Jones under the Bud Moore racing team. Peter Revson, an F1 driver, came over to the game. Swede Savage was on the Barracuda. Sam Posey drove the 70 Dodge Challenger. And you had Dan Gurney and his All-American racers driving the AAR Cuda for 70. And then Mark Donohue, a legend in Trans Am racing, was probably the leading driver of the whole crew. Now, this Trans Am Racing Series introduced the idea, or actually carried on the idea of win on Sunday, sell on Monday. Now, in addition to all these factory drivers, we can drill down even further into the independent drivers, which brings me to one of my distinct pleasure of introducing to you a friend of mine, a pioneer in the Trans Am Racing Series himself, as well as being a performance manager for Tasca Ford. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Dean. You know, it's not every day that we get to interview a Trans Am driver. You were an independent driver in the 69-70 Trans Am seasons, correct?
Yes, I did 68 with Malcolm Starr, but every time it was my turn to drive, he ended up cracking the car up.
Today, you can see there's two Boss cars behind you, what I call the old and the new. There is a 1970 Boss 302.
Gorgeous car.
Homologation car.
Gorgeous.
And homologation, very simply, is the process for a manufacturer to race the car on the track. They have to release so many for the street.
It was 100.
Yes.
I think they had to build 100
yes.
identical cars.
That's right. And this particular one behind us has 16 options. It has already been signed by Parnelli Jones. What you and I are blessed with today is this gentleman who was right there in the middle of the golden years of Trans Am racing. So Dean, what can you tell me, speaking of Parnelli Jones, what can you tell me of your interactions with Parnelli?
Oh, I had a few of them. Rufus, he always put his foot to the metal, to the pedal. And,
aggressive.
Whether he was off the track or on the track and everything. But
now, you were racing basically up in the Northeast, correct?
Right, because I had to be back in the dealership. And
yeah. And that would have been Tasca Ford, by the way.
Yes, 777 Taunton Avenue. We were, at one time, the second largest Ford dealer in the country, but that was 1966, I believe it was February or March. We acquired that reputation in sales. I think we delivered 778 new Fords that month. But we were well known for our drag racing with Bill Lawton and John Healy, the wrench. They were the Mustangs, Galaxies, and so forth and so on. And that was my department, high performance sales manager. And, you know, and we did. I mean, for a small state of Rhode Island, we put out a lot of high performance cars.
Yes.
And not only, I mean, we had a lot of 427s and Galaxies and convertibles. We had 390s, a lot of performance stuff. Of course, the Shelby products, we sold a lot of Shelby products too. So.
Yeah. And you were the performance manager for Tasca Ford.
Yeah, I can remember that. You just tripped a switch here. And I'm thinking, it was a Dapper Dan salesman, an older salesman. Of course, I was young then.
Dapper Dan.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
used car man, right, Dapper Dan. Yeah. His name was Al DeAngelis, and he was one of my buddies. And I was down in the sales office, sales manager's office, something, which is on the other end of the showroom in Taunton Avenue. And all I heard was, Junior!
Yeah.
He was talking about me. That was my nickname,
Oh, okay.
Bob Tasca, you know. Junior, come up. He says, you got a go-go customer for you. No. The young man came in, and he was dressed like a chicken farmer because he was a chicken farmer. He didn't want to wait on him. He's a junior.
Oh, yeah.
Me. I sold that man 3 vehicles. Wow. I was in his 20s, maybe 22.
He had to do Ray-Me.
He bought a convertible, 390 for his mother.
Wow.
Bought a 427 Galaxy for himself, and he bought a Ford pickup for the father. That was a lot of commissions in that day.
Yeah.
That day.
What a great day.
And yet, the regular salesmen, they didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
You know,
They made the mistake of prejudging.
absolutely.
I came from the Lincoln Mercury dealership body. I've learned personally never to prejudge.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. That's amazing. So, when you're going around the track, you said primarily up around Northeast. You said you loved Watkins Glen.
Oh, I love that track.
Yeah. What was it about it? What was it?
I don't know. I just had I did very successful with that, with the Lotus Cortina when I was racing for Ford of England. And I did very well with the Trans Am car.
You know, one thing is for those that are not really, in touch with what Trans Am racing was like, you're not talking flat track racing or 4 left turns. You know, you're talking hills, hills that'll come up and over and then bear left, and you're up at like 7,000 RPM coming over these hills. So it's challenging.
Yeah, I got Joe Slocum wanted to hit me over the head. I came in the tap, said 8,200.
Yeah.
But at the time, 68, 69, 77, Trans Am racing was actually bigger than NASCAR.
Yes, it was. It was hot.
And then people don't realize it today. Then television came along and made NASCAR what it is today. It's big dollars, but I mean, our whole purse for the whole race was only $50,000.
Wow.
Now, the last place car in the 39 car field in NASCAR, I think they get more than $50,000 just to start.
That's correct.
You know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But it was something that it was, people associated the Trans Am car with the car they drove to work.
Yes.
But, we sold a lot of cars. I mean,
Yeah.
Mario Andretti, we flew him he came into Connecticut Dragway because one day, I don't know, somebody said something on the announcer, and Frank Murata was a great promoter. I mean, he was probably one of the best promoters in the country in drag racing. And I guess it was something was talking about a match race against a Camaro, and I forgot which one it was right now. It was Norwood Chevrolet or someone else. And Bob Tasca says, well, if you want to do that, he said, I'll get Mario Andretti here to run it. Oh, geez. And then they blew that all up in the newspaper. They blew it up on the radio. And Mario comes in, and I'm telling him how to do this with a Cobra jet. I think I had a C6 automatic in it anyway. And he won the Indianapolis 500 4 days later, so.
Yes,
that was
he was the rising star for
Yeah.
sure. You were driving the red Ford Boss 302, number 28.
Right.
We'll flash a picture real quick for all of you. And in '69, you had the '69 car, and then for '70, you did what?
Well, they changed Ford.
You changed the like front
They
and back
changed
end.
the headlights,
Yeah.
the nose.
Yeah.
It went from 4 headlights to 2 headlights. And of course, we were using the headlights were blanked out. We were using to cool the transmissions and stuff like that. We had air going through there and the brakes and the lower spoiler and that. But boy, it was hot in those cars. I mean, you could get up 120 degrees with no problem.
I
Just
bet.
with the engine heat and everything.
Yeah.
In 3 hours. And the other big thing was you knew somewhere during the race you were going to not have any more brakes.
Yes.
And you hit the pedal and it just was a hard pedal. I would have liked to travel more and do more racing in the Trans Am series. There's some tracks I would have loved to race
Yeah.
out in the Midwest and stuff, but I had to be in the showroom and to support my family.
Mm-hmm.
At the time I was racing, I actually had 6 daughters to support, you know, so, and
yeah.
a wife.
Wow.
I'm happy I did what I did when I did it,
Yeah.
and sometimes I wish I had been able to expand it a little bit more. And one of the Ford members, and I won't mention which one, said to me that we would have loved to have you try one of our cars, but because I worked for a Ford dealer, he had to sign off.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Mr. Tasca wasn't about sign off.
No. So, it would be my honor if you would sign my card.
Okay, it'd be my pleasure being
Yeah.
your friend that we've
Greatly
been over the
appreciate
years.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna get you from this angle, signing it. You're good to go.
I'm good to go.
Right up here. Okay.
Most dealers were not performance oriented, so
That's correct.
Tasca was.
And that's how I'm going to actually lead it off, is what led Tasca into getting into performance.
Well, how we got into performance end of it is that we had a customer, Gordon Carlson from Barrington, Rhode Island, who was a diehard Ford guy, and he was drag racing in the early 60s. And then I think it was in 62 that he got involved with the Roy Birchfield, the salesman that sold him the car, asked him blah, 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 could we help him a little bit on parts. So then I got involved with it, and Healy got involved with it, and John Pagano got involved. And the old man said, okay, we'll help him with some rear ends and this and that and whatever else. But the work was not done in the dealership, it was done in John Pagano's garage, which was about 1.5 miles at most, 2 miles from the dealership. So that's when I said, okay, well, we're gonna do this classy, and I got the linen guys that provided the work stuff for the mechanics, and I said, look, I need some stuff to present a team, and that's when we got the white outfits, pants, shirts, hats, and everything with Tasca, You'll Be Satisfied, and all the other stuff, and our names on it, and there's pictures in here.
So that was the very first time
Yeah,
you started uniforming with Tasca Performance.
right.
Now, what is probably some of the biggest standout moments of being a performance manager at Tasca?
Oh, I think the Mustang birthday party was outstanding. In 1967, we had RA1 Freddie come in, and we picked him up on the airport with the Tasca caravan, and you couldn't do that today. I mean, you couldn't drive GT40s and Mustangs out on the tarmacs and the guys getting off the plane.
So this is the photo of it right here.
Yeah,
That's
that's the photo of they use that for the photo of the book.
Now, as we had discussed before in the first segment, in the 69-70 Trans Am season, you were an independent driver with
Right.
red Mustang number 28,
Right.
and that created a little bit of friction with Mr. Tasca because he wanted you in the showroom.
Well, slightly, but not as much as it was when I had to leave Tasca Ford when he refused to take the Mustang that he ordered and that Shelby built for me. And I even got into Mark Donahue's car because when the R models were stripped, there was no headliner, and I had Chuck Dean was here. You know, when I came to Dockery Ford, and my good friend Mark Donahu called, "Dean, what are you doing in my car?" I said, "Don't worry, I didn't over-rev it." "What?" "We were testing out Willow Springs." And Kenny Miles was there, and I remember I had gone through the school that Shelby sent me to his driver school in Riverside, and that was $1,000 a week.
Wow. Back then.
And I drove a Cobra for
Yep.
5 days on Riverside. Now you drove it with John Tomanis was the instructor, Mr. Porsche, Tomanis became the technical director of SECA, Trans Am Racing, later in life. And I actually had a callus on my buttocks from the first day in that Cobra, going in and out of turn 9. Come down the chute, through the now turn 9 at Riverside was like almost a quarter-mile turn. And so, anyway, we were out in the Mojave Desert testing all these cars, and I got to drive the car, and I really liked the car, you know. And the car came to Tasca maybe 10 days later, and he refused it, and that's when we had the big disagreement. Shelby actually paid for me to go to our motor company in Worcester, go set up.
They're still open today. I noticed there's a Har dealership out there. You know, I wanted to just ask you, related to all this, you mentioned that you were interacting with Shelby. What was your recollections of interacting with Carol Shelby?
Well, I had a good rapport with Mr. Shelby. He used to bust my chops every once in a while.
Like he did with everybody, I think.
Mr. Shelby, to work in his organization in the office, I think you had to be one of the top playmates of the, you know, he was very oriented to the beautiful ladies. And but he was always a gentleman. I can remember Bob Tasca went out to California to visit him and stay at his house. And all of a sudden, the only one left in the house was the elderly Mexican lady who did the cooking and caring of his house. I think my close relationship with the Shelby organization was Mr. Cardone, Dante Cardone. He was the national sales manager.
Okay.
And he was very, very good to me because I was very good to them in all the cars that I was able to sell. And you know, I wish I could find out if he was still alive today. I tried 5 or 6 years ago when they were having the Shelby employees reunion because I was about to go to California. If it was out east, I could drive there fine, but
Yes. And another key question is, from your vantage point now, looking back, there are so many Ford collectors, aficionados, who look at your time as legendary. Do you look back on that as you were in the middle of a legendary time of performance in America? Do you?
well, I look back and I say, well, why are they getting all excited? I just went to work and did what I did.
Right.
But today, even my daughters and some of my grandchildren, they say, Gramps, you did this, you did that, do that. Okay. So I did this and that, but it's funny, I was thinking laying in bed last week or something. Bob Tasca. I mean, I lived in this house with his family sometimes. I traveled with his wife and his children. We lived in the same hotel room and everything. I was the older adopted one, I guess his mom would say. You know? And even today, Bob and Carl, president and treasurer of the Tasca organization, which they have 35 dealerships right now.
And yes, you are intimately involved with the Tasca family even now, even with
Yeah, top fuel funding car, right?
Yeah,
If they win, I get all the responsibility of doing the promotional with the Providence Journal and the Channel 10 and Providence 12 and 6.
Fantastic. How would you summarize your career at Tasca? I mean, in basically so many words. I mean, I know it's difficult, but
I was thinking about that not too long ago. I said, you know, I was very, very lucky. I met Bob Tasca
and talented.
when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and he was a Hudson dealer. And I got my newspapers across the street from his dealership on Smith Street, North Providence. And I used to go over and talk to him about cars and this and that. So when I first started selling Fords in Providence on Promenade Street, the Ford dealer there, the old Ford dealer, had sold out to another group. And these groups were not very nice. They would make a deal with somebody when the people came to buy the car. They would say, no, we've changed the price, blah, blah, blah. Well, that happened to me and I walked out. So I still wanted to sell cars, and I went to Bob Tasca's dealership, which was very, very small at the time because he had lost his dealership completely to the hurricane of 1954 in Bristol, Rhode Island. So he had this small dealership in Taunton Avenue in East Providence. And I walked in and I asked about employment, and there was a guy named Thomas Parati. He said, no, thank you, we don't need you. We don't need anybody right now. So I talked to one of my schoolmates, Andy Fiore from St. Pius School, talking. I said, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. And here comes Bob Tasca from North Providence, where he and his wife lived. And he came over, he said, hello. He thought I was there to buy a car or something. And Andy, I introduced him. I said, Mr. Tasca, you don't remember me, do you? I said, I was a paper boy across the street. Oh, he said, yeah, you used to talk about the Hudson Hornets and that. I said, yeah. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I came to apply for a job. I was 18 years old, maybe 19. He said, Dean, he said, why don't you wait a few minutes? He said, Bill Corvasi's going to be coming in from Woonsocket. He's a general manager, and talk to him. I said, well, I talked to Mr. Parati. He said, no. He said, talk to Bill Corvasi. So I talked to Bill Corvasi. He knew my father. He knew, my father had a garage up in North Smithfield on 146, along with the Sports Center in North Providence on 146. So I talked to him for a while. He said, you know what, son? He said, if you can talk to the customers as well as you talk to me, he said, you can start today. And Carmen Parati ended up working for me years later.
How about that, huh?
Yeah.
So Dean, in wrapping up your whole experience with Tasca Ford, how would you encapsulate, I know it's difficult, but how would you encapsulate your whole experience?
Oh, I had the opportunity to do things that no young man would ever dream of doing, nor could I do today.
Perfect.
I was at the right place at the right time, and Bob Tasca was a dealer who was performance oriented, and I was the right guy at the right time. And like I said, I went probably back to the time I was 10, 11, 12 years old, talking about Hudson Hornets
Yes.
at his dealership in North Providence.
Yeah. All right, well, I just want to take this opportunity, Dean, to thank you very much
Okay, well,
for coming over and sharing your insights on your experiences, your performance at Tasca Ford as the performance manager, and also as an independent Trans Am driver. You are quite an amazing gentleman.
well, the good part about this whole deal is the good Lord gave me a memory that didn't fade.
Amen.
I still can recall.
Amen.
I can recall driving a 62 Fairlane 500 from Hershey, Pennsylvania to Tasca Ford with a 406 with 3 deuces on it and a 4-speed, and I have a Corvette pull up next to me on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. I played tricks on him. I slipped it in 3rd gear, nailed it, top 4th gear, left him in the dust, and never expected to see the lad. So I stopped for gas on the Turnpike and he pulled in, "What the hell's in that car?" I said, "Oh no, the Ford V8. I never told him it was a
That was
406.
all pumped up,
Yeah.
that's right. All right.
So,
Well, very good. Dean,
my
thank you
pleasure.
so much. Very good, sir.
all right.
Very good. Well, everybody, now that you've had a chance to get introduced to Dean Gregson, as you can see, he was an integral part to the Tasca family in their racing efforts and overall sales efforts. And I certainly want to thank Dean for signing the cars. But I wanted to take a moment to actually explain what you're looking at. This is a homologation car. Again, a homologation car, this 1970 Boss 302. Very simply, the manufacturer had to produce so many units for the street to be able to satisfy the homologation rules to race them on the racetrack. This car is in grabber orange. Ford had 3 grabber colors: grabber blue, grabber green, and of course, grabber orange. The race cars on the track, they referred to them as school bus yellow. And that was very simply, the Budmore racing team just decided that that didn't look like grabber orange, which it was. They called it school bus yellow. Because it's a strange 70 color. But anyway, this car is originally grabber orange. It was delivered new to Ralph Williams Ford, a very renowned dealership in Encino, California. What makes this homologation car different than most homologation cars is that, remember, these cars were only meant to actually get them on the racetrack, so a lot of them were strippers. They had basic interiors. This car, it was a showroom car. It was one to display the available options, and this is the highest factory options I've ever seen on a Boss. And it has 16 billable options on it, as witnessed here on the Marty report. As you can see, the option list is very large. It's got Ralph Williams Ford as the original selling dealer, and 350 track block, and it has the decor package interior, and loaded. Got the camera box, seat belts, and everything. And looking again, as I raise the hood, Parnelli Jones signature. Again, this car came from California, and at some point Parnelli Jones signed the car, and of course Dean Gregson signed it this morning. So fully optioned. It has all the equipment. It has the correct battery, all the correct Ford bits. It is completely done. I have a mirror placed on the bottom of the car. We'll put some stills of it to show you the nature of the complete rotisserie restoration on this car. This is the old. Now we're going to go up over to the next car, which is the new. And what that car is, and a lot of folks just don't know what it is, it's the modern Boss 302. Ford decided to bring out the Boss cars again in 2012 and 2013. 4,000 units each for each year with specialized racing equipment on it. Essentially a track car from the factory that you can just buy it from the dealer, uncork the side exhaust in the quad exhaust system, and go racing. This particular 2013 Boss 302 I picked up from an over 80-year-old man in Bonita Springs, Florida, and it had 481 miles on it. He put it away in a warehouse. He gave it to his girlfriend. She never really drove it. So that's what led me to buy the car, because it was in that color, which is specifically what I was looking for, and I knew I would never be able to find a modern Box 302 with that low of miles. Here are copies of the birth certificate on that Boss 302 car. And what you have essentially is this car, which is sitting over in the back corner right there, is a limited edition 2013 Mustang Boss 302 produced at Auto Alliance International on March 7th of 2012. The vehicle is number 136 of the 2013 production run and number 43 manufactured in school bus yellow. Now the thing I just wanted to go over quickly is the unique features that were put on this car versus a regular Mustang. The Boss, it leads out, first of all, the Boss 302 engine. It's, instead of the 415 horsepower or so factory stock, it's 444 horsepower. Forged pistons and rods, runners in the box, intake manifold, CNC machine, high flow ported aluminum cylinder heads, steel backed high RPM clutch, unique steering tuning, unique chassis tuning with manually adjusted dampers, those are 5 ways on all 4 corners, low expansion brake hoses, unique upper grille with removable fog light delete covers, and unique low gloss black reflective hood body stripes. The interior package with unique interior finish panels, quad exhaust as mentioned before, staggered wheels, 373 rear axle ratio with limited slip, and the optional torsion rear end. This car has that optional torsion rear end, and essentially if you're on a hill and you're coming up over the hill, whatever rear tire is losing torque, it'll throw all the torque to the other rear wheel that has traction so you don't lose time on the track. Advanced track stability system with sport mode, calibrated to race and track tune. And last but not least, the red track key, the key to happiness. It's the key that you put in when the car comes up to temperature. Within 31 to 32 seconds, the car will switch out over 200 parameters in the engine, and you will start getting a very lopey exhaust. It's noticeable, and the performance of the car really comes on. That would be used for off-road track use only. So there you have it, a pair of the new and the old Boss 302s, both extremely special cars. 16 factory options, delivered from New York, completely rotisserie, signed by Parnelli Jones and Dean Gregson this morning, and back behind is the 2013 Boss 302. Bought at 481 miles, it now stands at 948 miles on the clock, and the car is how old? Oh, 12 years old. And that brings us to the conclusion of this Gauze Garage exclusive for January 2025. I wanted to thank Dean for showing up. I want to thank the film crew, Grant and Champ at Elevated Imagery for producing this, and thank you for visiting Gauze Garage. Keep on motoring. Thank you.
Awesome.